So Mark Hamill is back at it again. He just gave an interview talking about how he would pass the baton to Ryan Gosling, and this is not a great time for a Star Wars fan, honestly. If Mark Hamill has already given up, has already risen the white flag, and we are definitely going into a new territory here, never before seen in Star Wars. Mark Hamill, at the very least, even during the sequels, was always kind of involved, but now he said, I've had my time, meaning it is all over, folks. So Mark Hamill recently gave an interview about Star Wars Starfighter to People magazine. So this is the first quote I'm going to say. She said, "No, none of these people need advice from me. They're doing well. I've had my time. I'm going to ask for advice from them," which is, again, not a great thing to hear. So it is basically he is expressing that he has completely moved on from Star Wars, and we talked about this in previous videos where Kathleen Kennedy kind of just slowly pushed him out of the way because, well, they're making new way, which they're banking on Mandalorian and Grogu, and if that movie doesn't do well, doesn't bode well, doesn't make bank at the box office like Fantastic Four and Superman, we talked about this, they didn't completely flop, but it wasn't what they expected. Of course, Marvel and DC are in dire need of some blockbuster hits. So here comes Mandalorian and Grogu, and then Star Wars Starfighter. These are the two movies that Lucasfilm is completely banking on, and I hope they make money because, well, you're gonna have to bring back my man Mark Hamill again for sure. So he went on to say, and this is just a class act, "I'm so grateful to George Lucas for letting me be part of that back in the day. The humble days when George called Star Wars the most expensive, low-budget movie ever made. We never expected it to become a permanent franchise and a part of the pop culture like that. But my deal is, I had my time. I'm appreciative of that, but I really think they should focus on the future and all the new characters." And that's been the biggest trouble, of course, outside of Grogu and The Mandalorian, which I think have been pretty successful in their own right. Not anything of significance has been brought up from this new era. Even when we talk about Kylo Ren, they scrapped an entire movie surrounding Ben Solo and Kylo Ren and that whole ordeal, which was, out of the sequels, Adam Driver is one of the gems that came out, and they didn't go forward with that, which is mysterious and baffling, of course, at the same time. Then Mark Hamill later clarified perhaps the too blunt remarks, which I get, Mark. I mean, at this point, he is just over it. And he said he hasn't retired from Star Wars so much as Star Wars seemingly has retired him, which is what we talked about throughout all these videos. And I get comments like, "Oh no, Kathleen Kennedy didn't do that, and you're just hating on Disney." Here it is from the mouth of Mark Hamill himself. He said, "I saw headlines, Mark Hamill quit Star Wars. Well, let me say, they haven't asked me. It's not like they said, please come back. How much can you do with a Force Ghost? I'd like a movie set all in a Force Ghost realm. I could have conversation with Alec Guinness, from your lips to God's ears." And this is why I appreciate, of course, Mark Hamill. This is why the fans love him, because, I mean, he could joke around being dissed by Disney and Lucasfilm. And it's clearly that. He knows his role is kind of finished, but we're not saying that all he is an old actor, an old man that could play a Force Ghost. Yes, that is really what he could do, and he did that in Episode 9. What we want is him participating in a new Luke Skywalker series, whether that be a 3D series, whether that be a live-action series. We've seen him participate in the Book of Boba Fett and in The Mandalorian. So he was at the set. He dressed up as Luke Skywalker. They digitally de-aged him and did all sorts of stuff with his voice. All that meaning that Mark Hamill should be involved in some sort of a way because he is Luke Skywalker in its totality. And he did say that to Esquire. He said the physical character of Luke was later resurrected for The Mandalorian with the help of deepfake technology. Mark Hamill did the voice and the capture work. So this is exactly what he said. People say, oh, now you're going to be able to do a whole lot of series with Luke post Return to the Jedi, I said, I don't think so. First of all, they don't really need me to tell those stories, but if they do, they could get an age-appropriate actor. So why is Mark Hamill saying this after doing what he did for The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, participating? So this is the thing that I'm saying, is that it's not like Mark Hamill doesn't want to participate or doesn't want to be a part of this. Kathleen Kennedy, and it says so right here, recasting Luke Skywalker is seemingly off the table because Kathleen Kennedy's 22 remarks were that they made a big mistake replacing Harrison Ford. So she knows what we're saying, what the fans are saying. This is what Kathleen Kennedy said to Vanity Fair. There should be moments along the way when you learn things, Kathleen Kennedy said, adding, now it does seem so abundantly clear that we can't do that, meaning replace Harrison Ford as Han Solo with Alden Ehrenreich. And of course, you can't replace really Mark Hamill with any other young actor. So this is why, the fans are talking about, of course, Sebastian Stan. And we've been saying constantly that Sebastian Stan deserves to be in Star Wars as Mark Hamill with a collaboration, because Mark himself has said that he wants Sebastian Stan as Mark Hamill, as Luke Skywalker. They've been talking together about possibly having Sebastian Stan play Luke Skywalker. And Kathleen Kennedy just panics all over the place and gets to these rash decisions. Alden Ehrenreich is not Sebastian Stan. Sebastian Stan is at a whole another class of actor. And the only person that could do Luke Skywalker constantly is Sebastian Stan with the help of Mark Hamill. That is all I'm saying, is that Mark Hamill should be there alongside Sebastian Stan, and they could both have their own mold a version of Luke Skywalker that we could see in, of course, live action. Now we've not talked about at all about a 3D animation of Luke Skywalker. Yes, you're having trouble with live action, actors and all that. Here you have a perfect chance. You just get Mark Hamill, you de-age his voice with 11 Labs, for crying out loud, and he just voices the entirety of an animated series for Luke Skywalker. You don't even have to get an actor. You don't even have to mocap him. It's animation. You could do a Clone Wars version of a Luke Skywalker post-Return of the Jedi in 3D animated form, and you could call it canon, and you could fill those voids that we have in Star Wars with Luke Skywalker. It is the biggest tragedy in Star Wars that we don't know what happens with Luke after Return of the Jedi. It's basically like it writes itself. We have comics and tidbits that we know he's building an order, but we don't really know what Luke is doing day to day. What dangers is he facing, and what is, like, you have new movies, Mandalorian and Grogu and Ahsoka Season 2, and there's no mention of a Luke Skywalker. Ezra Bridger is back in the galaxy, and there's no mention of Luke joining Ezra Bridger, going after Thrawn. It's really pathetic, and I don't understand. It's the easiest thing. Why do they hate Luke Skywalker this much? I just don't understand. It's really a puzzle to me at this point. Mark Hamill, please come back. And I know you're sour, and I know Disney and Lucasfilm kind of dissed you and just tossed you aside for, Acolyte, for the Acolyte, but those flopped, and they're dead now. You need to come back. We need you in Star Wars. May the Force be with you.